You are listening to Think Theory Radio. Radio.
Hello and welcome to Think Theory Radio, the show that brings you topics outside the mainstream realm of thought and ideas to make you think. And I'm your host, Damien Perdue, your guide on this metaphysical ride of esoteric delights. And of course, manning the ones and twos and threes and fours, Polly C.
Yo.
And today we have a special guest. We're going to delve into the secrets of Freemasonry and expose all the truths. I want to welcome Brother Justice to the show.
Hello. Hey, guys. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here, and let's get to it.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming out, man. I appreciate it. Obviously, listeners of the show know that I love talking about any kind of occult wisdom and esoteric knowledge, and Freemasons come up quite a little bit on this show. And anything like, especially to do with ancient history and the kind of, I guess you want to call it maybe a genealogy throughout the years, into kind of secret societies like Freemasonry or others, even, the Bavarian Illuminati or whatever else. And I know you kind of through the hip hop scene, you're also a hip hop head.
Yeah.
And in recent years, I've been seeing you post all these like amazing photos of these books, like just really interesting, historical kind of documentative books on Freemasonry and occult wisdom, and I was like, wow, I gotta get this guy on the show.
Definitely. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and what drew you to Freemasonry, and how long have you been in it?
Well, I'm about 5 years now.
Okay.
So basically, what happened was I was always intrigued by it. I think in high school, I had a friend in shop class or whatever, auto class. He pulled out a back of a dollar bill, and he's like, hey, if you mark the letters, it spells Mason, and there's a pyramid, and my brother says it's about the Freemasons. And then ironically enough, we had a teacher, like a substitute teacher or whatever, and he had a Masonic ring on.
Okay.
And the same friend was like, see, look, he's a Freemason.
Yeah.
Look at his ring. My brother says they run the world. And so I asked this gentleman, his name was Mr. Robbins. I was like, hey, how can I become a Freemason? He's like, well, you have to be age 21, and quite frankly, I don't think you have what it takes to be a Freemason. I'm like, dang, so he shot me down. So I guess, my friend is sitting right here. I guess we had a joke about like joining because his brother is like freaked out about the Freemasons.
Okay.
He thinks like they really run the world,
Yeah.
and they sacrifice children and
Yeah.
like weird, bizarre stuff. So I guess like we were just having a joke, like, hey, let's join. But I guess I was really serious about it.
Yeah.
Because I was really intrigued by it, and I would collect books whenever I would find on the topic. Garage sales, antique stores, whatever. I would find books about it, and so I petitioned a lodge that I was invited to. I guess there's a restaurant that I go to, like a Chicago-style hot dog place that I go to. I guess the owner was a Freemason.
Okay.
There was a car with a license plate and a decal, and I asked the owner, because I was cool with him, I was like, hey, whose car is that? And one thing led to another. I met with the guy, and he invited me to his lodge, and I became a member of Barrington 522 in Barrington, Illinois, and I got initiated there. And fast forward, now I'm working for the Grand Lodge of Illinois on their education committee. I'm the lodge education officer and historian, assistant librarian at the Scottish Rite Valley of Chicago, and assistant editor of the Illinois Lodge of Research. And it's been an incredible journey. And I'm also the host of a YouTube channel called Modern Working Tools, Today's Tools for the Modern Freemason. So yeah, you could definitely look for that on YouTube and on Facebook.
That's awesome. So have you run into that teacher that shot you down? You're like,
yes,
what's up, dude?
Yes. He actually joined my lodge.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I guess his lodge, they were selling their building in Lake Zurich or something like that, and then they ended up merging with our lodge.
Okay.
And I told him that story, and like it was pretty funny. We laughed about it. So yeah.
It's like I proved you wrong, dude.
Definitely.
Not only did you join, though, you actually became like a kind of a very contributing member. And
Yeah, very active.
Yeah.
Definitely very active, and still going strong. So.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I brought you on too, because I think much like you were saying, your friend and his brother, believe in the conspiracy theories
Yeah.
of Freemasonry. I mean, I know when I was younger, I totally believed that stuff.
I did too.
Yeah, and I remember meeting a guy when I was really young who told me he was in it.
Yeah.
Like, knew all the secrets, and and as you get older and you actually start, really studying and learning history, you kind of learn it's, not what it is on the surface. Of course, there are people that run the world that are probably Freemason, but
Right.
there's also other people I don't think any of the Saudi royal family are Freemasons or anything.
So before I get into it, though, I would like to make a disclaimer.
Yes.
The views and opinions that I'm going to express tonight are solely of my own.
Mhm.
They don't represent in any way, shape, or form of any jurisdictions or affiliations I'm a part of, any groups.
Yeah.
I'm speaking on behalf of me.
Okay.
It's no official position. Not one person can speak for a worldwide fraternity, obviously.
For
sure. But yeah, I just want to throw that out there to save my behind.
So you're not going to tell me the secret underground? No.
No, definitely not.
The hidden secret lodges? Have you been to Bohemian Grove? Tell us the truth, Dr.
No, but I am taking a trip to Germany this summer.
Oh, dope.
And my girlfriend wants to show me like some places, some castles,
Yeah.
and Masonic lodges. There's like an Illuminati tour in Bavaria,
Yeah.
where they show you around, and I plan on checking that out. So.
Oh, yeah. There's some cool stuff. You could probably look up to some of the alchemy labs, like the old alchemy.
Yeah, in Prague they have
Yep, in
John
Prague,
D.
yep.
John D's
Yeah.
little alchemy shop over
Yeah.
there. I want to check that out.
I actually had a woman on who was an alchemic historian who deciphered Arthur D., John D's son's texts about the Philosopher's Stone.
Okay.
And she actually decoded it with this computer program.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of John D.
Yeah.
Also, the 3 books of occult philosophy. That's also pretty good.
What's the 3 books of occult philosophy?
It's from Germany.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to get too much into it. I don't want to sidetrack it, but yeah. So basically, when I say occult, it's not a bad thing.
No.
I know there's sort of like a stigma and taboo attached to the word occult and occultism. Really, it just means like hidden.
Yeah.
Hidden, not readily available. Just mystery.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be satanic or dark or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people get mistaken about it.
Yeah.
They hear that word and they think it's like Satan or something like that. It's definitely not about that.
Well, from what I understand, it's a derivative of ocular, and
Okay.
it means hidden from sight.
Okay.
So that's what that kind of comes from. But then you also think of cult as culture is
Right. Right.
So I think people get those mixed up, like a cult and cult.
Right.
But at the same time, like you were saying, this kind of occult mysticism and how far it goes back and what's the true tradition of it, dating back to ancient Egypt.
Yeah.
And so from what I understand, I'm gonna like my little brief, because I was thinking about that before I had you on the show. It's like I know about the Freemasons, I know about the conspiracy theories, but then I was like, well, you know what? I kind of know more about the history of the Bavarian Illuminati than I do actually Freemasons. And the understanding that I had, the general gist of the story was that this was a group of builders, group of masons that were learned these ancient kind of architectural teachings that go back all the way back to Imhotep, who was the architect of the Great Pyramids. And that's kind of what the basic kind of tagline, I guess, if you want to say, that I've known about the Freemasons. But what is, from your studies, what have you gleaned?
From my extensive research, it is too complicated to explain, especially within 1 hour. But Freemasonry is so old, it predates, modern religion and language. And various cultures throughout the world have had stonemasons. South America, Pacific Islanders, ancient China had ancient builders and fraternal societies, Egypt. Freemasonry is a vacuum that absorbed over time all these various influences. There's a few theories that historians are putting out there. One is that the Freemasons came from operative stone guilds. Essentially, they needed members and they wanted to further their stance in society, so they would accept, people of nobility, people who had money to sustain the organization. Another one is, the Freemasons and the Stonemasons were 2 separate organizations the whole time and were working side by side. Joseph Ford Newton kind of put that in his book, The Builders, but I'll get into that later. So basically, the stonemasons were guys that picked the rough stones from the quarries. They measured them and stuff like that. Also, plasterers. The Freemasons were the guys that were like the architects and the designers, the planners, guys that were really well versed in language, mathematics, geometry. So yeah, so there's different theories, but honestly, I was watching Chariot of the Gods not too long ago.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of Freemasonic influence in a lot of these ancient structures. So Freemasonry predates society. I mean, this is ancient stuff. I mean, and if you want to get really deep into it, they talk about beings coming from the sky and showing humanity the way to build and geometry and the sciences and all that. So this is a very deep thing. I have a friend that went to Egypt, and he was looking in some of the temples and the pyramids, and he found a lot of similar hieroglyphs that talk about Freemasonry and depict it. So I mean, but again, in all fairness, Freemasonry can be traced back to Scotland. On record, on paper, it comes from Scotland. Where they got it, it's a mystery.
And that was the first Grand Lodge.
Correct.
Okay. And that was 17 something, or was that before that?
It was a long time, way before that. Okay. Essentially, the Grand Lodge of England kind of superseded the authority over them. They were kind of disorganized in Scotland.
Okay.
A lot of their lodges were kind of fighting amongst each other about who was older and what have you. But yeah, so Freemasonry has various Grand Lodges in every country, but all Grand Lodges adhere to the United Grand Lodge of England.
Yeah.
They kind of put the kibosh on a lot of the irregularities, and they kind of showed other Grand Lodges what's the right way to do your ritual and how to conduct business and stuff like that. But even in the United States, every state has their own Grand Lodge. And in all honesty, there's 2 Grand Lodges.
Okay.
Our African American brothers have had lodges for a long time. But some states decided, okay, we got to recognize these guys.
Yeah.
They have their paperwork together, they have the proper lineage that goes back to United Grand Lodge of England. Let's recognize them. Of course, there's a few states that still don't want to recognize them.
Right.
Some of the southern states or what have you. But here in Illinois, we recognize our Prince Hall brothers. So in most states, there's 2 Grand Lodges. And a big part of the conspiracies is, we have spurious or clandestine lodges that, they start up an incorporation or a LLC, and they say, oh, we're a lodge. They initiate people and haze them really bad, take their money, and maybe they do sinister stuff.
Right.
And then these people leave and go online on YouTube and say, oh, I joined a lodge and this is what happened, and this is bad, this is evil.
Yeah.
And that's not us. I was going to a concert. I'm also a metalhead.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was going to a Cradle of Filth concert a few years ago, and I was on my way there, and I saw 2 fake lodges there, and in a really sketchy part of the West Side.
Oh, wow.
So there's definitely fake lodges all over the world. Even in Italy, the mafia had a lodge there, the P2 Lodge. I believe it was in Rome, if I'm not mistaken. So a lot of people join fake lodges, and they think that it's a real one, and bad stuff happens to these people, unfortunately. But they blame us, and a lot of occult groups sprung from Freemasonry, like S. L. McGregor Mathers. He left Freemasonry and started the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Aleister Crowley was a member of a clandestine lodge in Mexico or something like that. So a lot of people do things, they claim Freemasonry, but it's really not us. The Illuminati, like you mentioned, came from Bavaria. I guess the Jesuits had a monopoly there on the universities and who could teach. So he wanted to start his own school of wisdom for humanity.
Adam Weishaupt.
Yeah, definitely. And so he needed a ritualist, because I think he was only a fellow craft. He only made it to the 2nd degree or something like that.
Yeah.
So he got together with someone called Kaniga, and Kaniga was a member of a German Freemasonic rite called the Rite of Strict Observance. And the Rite of Strict Observance was very chivalric, Knight Templar based, a lot of mysticism. So he kind of took those rituals from the Rite of Strict Observance, got together with Adam Weishaupt, they revised them, changed it, and they collaborated, and they made the Order of the Illuminati. And then it was shortly disbanded, in the 1800s.
Well, I feel like partly what's similar, not just what you mentioned with the Illuminati and Freemasonry, but there's with the whole 1700s, the Age of Enlightenment, and the kind of the persecution by the church, I think is kind of one of the reasons that there are still these remaining kind of conspiracy theories, because a lot of it was put forth by the church at the time to kind of extinguish these kind of free-thinking
Correct.
societies.
Yeah. And we even have documentation that I think the Queen of England, it's in this book right here that I've been reading, but she wanted to get spies to join Freemasonry to see what they're about. They're highly secretive. She didn't like that.
Yeah.
And then I guess some guys were privy that they were being spied on.
Uh-huh.
So they went back and they the Freemasons told the Queen, "Oh, they're good guys." But conspiracies concerning Freemasonry go way back.
Yeah.
Like in the 1600s, there's speculation that we sacrificed children to be Freemasons. They even accused Oliver Cromwell of being a Freemason. If you're a member of the research groups, there's something called Ars Quattro Coronati. They're the premier research lodge in the whole world. They're based in England. Every year they produce research papers. It goes way back. They thought if you had the secret information of the master's word, you must have sacrificed a child or something, your firstborn. This goes back to the late 1500s, early 1600s. They were talking about this.
Well, I'm sure it probably correlates too to what we were talking about with the teachings of ancient Egypt, and those within from how with kind of the retranslation of the Bible. What is the Greek version?
Yeah,
is when they started adding in that Egypt was the big enemy, and the Pharaoh and Moses and this and that, and it was kind of at a time it was really like a fake news kind of thing. Yeah. And it was an attempt by the Greeks to kind of overpower the Egyptian authority. And I think that kind of led into the whole anything that comes out of ancient mysticism is satanic.
Yeah.
And then you have the Masonic symbolism that definitely correlates, like you're saying, to ancient hieroglyphs, the whole concept sacred geometry, the compass and the square and the G in the middle. I could see it becomes this kind of esoteric symbol of some,
I feel a problem is a lot of people, this stuff goes over their heads a little bit, and they are afraid of what they don't really understand. I also believed in the conspiracies. I would watch guys on TV, on YouTube, pastors, televangelists, all this is bad and stuff like that. I joined, and it was the complete opposite of what these guys were selling me. Yeah. I was actually a little disappointed that there's no goat being sacrificed or something like that. It's totally not that, and I'm not just saying that. I'm saying that because I keep it real. Yeah. A little too real sometimes, and I still talk with people that think that we're sinister, and it's totally not true. Yeah. We actually do great things. Charity work. These guys will help you out. Obviously we don't all get along. It's a very humanistic fraternity society. Not everyone gets along, but I know when push comes to shove, these guys are there for me. Yeah. And I during lockdown, for example, this is one example. There were churches that were not helping people during this time. The Freemasons were helping people. That's right. I really feel sorry for some of these people that think this is a real sinister thing. It's really not. If anything, Freemasonry has brought me closer to my faith in deity and God. Yeah. So in Illinois, actually, it's interesting because Illinois had two Grand Lodges, one in 1840, and then we had something called the Anti-Masonic Political Party in the United States. And so Freemasonry kind of went dark, and lodges shut down throughout the whole United States. And so Freemasonry Illinois shut down shortly after 1840, and they didn't get brought back again until 1820 they shut down, and they didn't get brought back again until 1840. Okay. But in 1840, when they got brought back again, they needed startup capital. They didn't have it, so the only people in town were the Mormons. In Nauvoo, in that area where Joseph Smith was settling, there was a lot of Mormons that were interested in joining Freemasonry or who were already Masons already. And they were like, you know, we'll help you guys out.
Yeah.
If we give you money to start your Grand Lodge, maybe you could return the favor and order a dispensation to have our Mormon lodges formed. We had a Grand Master that did it, but it was highly controversial. There was a few lodges that were like, no, we can't allow this. This is not right. And eventually it led to Joseph Smith's death. But Joseph Smith is an Illinois Freemason.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know that.
Huh. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
All right. Well, good stuff so far. We got to take a quick break. If anybody wants to give us a call and ask Brother Justice some questions, hit us up at 773-763-9278. That's 773-763-WCPT. We'll be back with more Think Theory Radio. Welcome back to Think Theory Radio. This is Damien. Today I'm joined by Freemason Brother Justice. We're getting into some very interesting history on the origins of Freemasonry and occultism and kind of some conspiracy stuff. We do have some callers. Let's take a call real quick. This is Jim. Jim, what's going on?
Hi, how are you guys?
Good.
I just need to assist them with their part. What has these two questions? And I'm actually across the clubhouse where the Scottish right and even the WCPT and the Scottish one I ever I never assumed that the place was expansion. Records from us very like
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, that's definitely before my time. I know the Scottish Rite Valley of Chicago used to be based in Chicago. Now they relocated. I think in like 2006 they moved to Bloomingdale. But I believe they did have a mansion though. So I believe you are correct. But to what extent, I don't know. That was way before my time.
Yeah.
But the Scottish Rite had a massive library and archive, and right now the library kind of like shrunk down in size. But yeah, also the Shriners, the Medina Shriners also had a very nice building back in the day.
I used to go there when I was a kid.
Yeah, I went to the circus a
Yeah,
long time.
yeah.
That's how I got introduced too. Like,
Yeah.
what are these guys with the hats
Right.
and all that? And then come to find out, full circle. But yeah, I believe you are correct. The Scottish Rite did have like a mansion over there.
I wonder if the Newberry Library has anything.
I still have to check that place
Yeah,
out.
that's an
Sounds
amazing
pretty cool.
library. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably like our, I don't know, famous library.
But the Scottish Rite is amazing. It's my favorite organization. They're a class organization.
The
I
Newberry
love it.
Library, though, it's like it's like the Art Institute of books.
Yeah.
If you want some kind of comparison. But I love that Jim called it Bughouse Park because that's an old school term that goes back to, and I'm sidetracking for a second, but that area. So Washington Square Park, which is called now, used to be called Bughouse Park, and that's because it used to be a huge soapbox type of place, like back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and that whole area was a place called Hobohemia, and there used to be a speakeasy over there called the Dill Pickle Club, and Carl Sandburg and Jack Johnson and all these old poets and revolutionaries and communists would meet there, and people go to the park and they'd stand on the soapbox and preach. But anyway, just a little Chicago history.
Yeah, I also found out Philip K. Dick is from Chicago. I didn't know that.
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah,
What?
he was from
That's
Chicago.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that blew my mind when I found out about that.
That's funny because I just picked up a Philip K. Dick book the other day.
Yeah, he's
That's another name we
Legendary.
could put in the.
Yeah, for those of you playing at
Yeah,
home.
exactly.
Yeah,
The drinking,
yeah,
the
yeah.
Think Theory drinking game. Oh,
Yeah.
Philip K. Dick was mentioned. Let's before we get back into what we were talking about, let's take one more call. We got Dan. What's going on, Dan?
correct. Yeah. Right. And a few paintings too. They have a lot of artifacts. Yeah. Well, yeah.
All right. Hey. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Dan. Thanks for the call. Let's see what do you got to say on that,
Yeah,
Brother Justice.
well, to my knowledge, the Knights of Columbus, I believe that's what he's mentioning, they recently changed their ritual. They made it shorter, more condensed. I know they had like a 3-degree ritual system, but they changed it because I guess the membership declined. With fraternal organizations, we're facing kind of a dilemma right now where membership is declining. Kids nowadays are not interested in these things. They like TikTok and Fortnite and the internet. And I also read an article that male bonding is in a decline in the United States. A lot of guys aren't getting together anymore. And that's unfortunate because the guys need a place to hang out with other guys and enjoy the time, the camaraderie, the fellowship. That's very important in our society, and I think we're losing touch with that. But to speak on the Scottish Rite, I'm very honored and humbled to be a part of that organization and be the assistant librarian and look at their archives and see what they have. And I'm there when there's only a few people in the building, and I have access to things that most people just don't. And it took a while for me to get to that. It took me like 3 years of begging them, hey, come on, let me in, let me this, show me this, show me. And they finally got sick of hearing me beg about it. They're like, all right, you could be the assistant librarian. Brother Carl Peterson, he's the main librarian. He's kind of showing me the ropes. And the Scottish Rite is truly an amazing organization. We have a Super Bowl party coming up, too. I'm looking forward to that. I'd never miss those parties. But Scottish Rite is a class organization. If you don't know, the Scottish Rite really isn't Scottish. It comes from France. And it was worked in the Caribbean islands. These degrees called the Royal Secret. So these degrees were worked in the Caribbean islands, and one gentleman named Franken, he brought these degrees. He made a copy. He probably paid a lot of money to do it, and he made a copy of the rituals. They came to the United States, and then they got picked up in Charleston, South Carolina, and then they became the Scottish Rite there. And then the Scottish Rite also came about in the northern part of the United States, but it was like a fake body, an imposter group. And then eventually they reconciled and joined forces, and to this day we have Scottish Rite in the northern and in the southern. They're pretty much the same organization, but the ritual and the drama, there's 32 degrees that you see, and it's like in a play setting, kind of like the Drury Lane Theater or something like that in Oak Brook. You kind of like see a degree presented in like a live theater setting. And there's differences in the ritual between the North and South. The South was kind of spearheaded by someone named Albert Pike. Somewhat controversial up here because he was a Confederate brigadier general. However, he kind of turned on the Confederacy. A lot of people don't talk about that. He owed them money, and he kind of split from them eventually. But Albert Pike was heavily influenced by the occult, mysticism, the Kabbalah, the Zenavesta, the religion of the Parsis. Everything. And he kind of put these symbols and allegory into those degrees. Whereas our degrees are a little bit different in that regard. They're not as mystical per se. But they're still very good. It's just a culture thing. Our culture up north is different than down south, I guess.
That's interesting.
So
the degrees are different in the respect of what you need to learn for each degree, or just kind of
you still get the same lesson out of the degree. It's portrayed in a different way, a different format. For instance, we have degrees that are about like Native Americans or the American Revolution or stuff like that. They have degrees that are like ancient Egypt or it's just a different flair, but the core message is still the same. And as a member here of the northern jurisdiction, I could go down south and see it, St. Louis or Iowa or whatever. So like they accept us, we accept them, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing those degrees actually down south.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
Now I know you brought some books.
Yeah.
What are these books you brought?
So basically, if you are a conspiracy-minded person that thinks, the Freemasons are just evil, scum of the earth type people, these 3 books will definitely dispel all those myths and rumors that you were lied to about.
Okay.
So I'll start with this one here. This one is called Anti-Masonry. By one of my Masonic idols. His name was Alphonse Serza. He passed away a while ago. This is called Anti-Masonry, Light on the Past and Present Opponents of Freemasonry. Alphonse Serza was from the Chicago area. He was a lawyer, a law teacher, and he authored many books on Freemasonry, and he was the spearhead behind the Illinois Lodge of Research. And this book is kind of hard to come by, but if you could find it, I would definitely pick it up. It talks about like all the groups that were against Freemasonry in the United States and elsewhere. It talks about the popes and stuff who were against Freemasonry, a lot of conspiracy stuff. This is an excellent resource if you could find it. So yeah.
Okay.
And then another book, this was penned by my friends Arturo de Hoyos and S. Brent Morris. These gentlemen are like very prolific when it comes to Masonic authorship. They write a lot of books, amazing books. I don't even know how they do it. It's like they're using Chat GPI or something.
Yeah.
I don't know what they must not have a life, these guys. I love them to death. Sorry if you take offense to that. I love you guys. But yeah, this book, Is It True What They Say About Freemasonry? By Arturo de Hoyos and S. Brent Morris. This book goes through all the known conspiracies that are mentioned about us and dispels them.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very simple how it's outlined. All the sources are cited. Yeah, it gets really in-depth about all the conspiracies. Now, this book I'm reading right now, I'm kind of reading this at work. I work at the office, and sometimes I get really bored at the office, so I have time to read. So I'm almost done with this one, but this book is really amazing. This is called The Builders by Joseph Fort Newton.
Okay.
And it talks about like how the stonemasons developed and how they were building cathedrals and places of worship. And it talked about, the esoterics and like a little bit of the occult mysticism behind what they were doing. This book was actually given out to members of the Scottish Rite a long time ago, also members of Iowa who joined Freemasonry. I wish they would give this book out. This book is amazing, an amazing resource. This man, Joseph Fort Newton, was a wealth of knowledge, really. So a lot of the citations, the sources, I'm kind of reading through them now. I'm highlighting some of his sources, looking up those books, and it's opening up a whole portal. But yeah, this man was amazing.
That one was pretty old. So when was that written?
I think in like the 20s.
Okay.
This is like a newer edition.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was like from the 20s, if I'm not mistaken. So,
Okay.
Yeah, excellent resource. The Builders by Joseph Fort Newton.